Morning, friends. Thank you for joining me. And my topic for today is, are you okay with God? Many people claim to believe in God. A number of them worship at a church or a synagogue, a place to demonstrate their faithfulness to God. Many people have a theology based upon God. Many wish and want to believe in God because it's comforting. Various things about God. God's in the news, stories are done about God. People write about God. My question is, though, are you okay with God? And let me ask you some questions and why I'm asking that question. First, let me give you a little story. A church I'm at right now currently. It's a new church. Things are going real well, in my opinion. A lot of people are enjoying the church. The church definitely falls within the category of Orthodox Christianity. I think most people of reasonable ilk would agree with that. And, we have community, we have people who are involved, people who are active in ministry, people who are engaged in transparency where they're trying as best to the capability of sharing their true selves with others, not putting on airs, not being phonies, not being hypocrites as much as they can, and trying to grow in their spiritual life. Um, Getting a lot of people coming, visitors, but we have a core group of people who are really being involved and engaged in the church, and we have these different meetings. We have a meeting called Equip, where we equip the saints, for the working of the ministry, so we can get more psychologically, more spiritually mature, so we can go out missionally to share our faith actively in all the arenas of life, in our neighborhoods, in our cultures, in our jobs, so that we can somehow be Christ in the world and go out there and make disciples. It's not just an insulation type faith where we follow Jesus in a way where we're just kind of like a clique. We're trying to be as best as we can a holistic church. Well, we've had visitors coming in the past, and a lot of the visitors stay. Of course, you're always going to get some visitors who leave. Um, Recently, we had some people who had some trouble with the church and are currently not attending because during sermons or whatever, topics come up that show a pastor or a church's emphasis doctrinally. So one of the members of the congregation came up and said, "Oh, I got a problem with you." And our pastor said, "Well, what is that?" He goes, "You're Calvinistic," which is true. We're a Reformed church, so a Reformed church means that basically anybody who's Reformed in the Christian faith, their go-to guy, so to speak, would be John Calvin. Just like maybe in Roman Catholicism, Thomas Aquinas is the go-to guy, and every church has a go-to guy in a sense. It's not the only guy, but there may be a guy who's the biggest guy that of the old dead guys we admire. Not that we don't read other people, or not that we're distinctly Calvinistic, I guess, in every way. We might take issue with Calvin on points, but he said you're Calvinistic, and so the issue got on to predestination in election. Not an uncommon theme among a lot of people. It's a struggle. It's a controversy in the church. It always has been. So this guy mentioned these things, and the pastor and him went on for a little while about Calvinism, so to speak, and about election and predestination, the sovereignty of God. And this person who had the problem with it acknowledged that many in the church who are Calvinists are wonderful Christians. He also acknowledged that Calvinism is within the pales of orthodoxy, so to speak. I mean, he knows that Christians come from different stripes, and he didn't want to say that he thought because somebody was a Calvinist they were a heretic or they couldn't be saved. He just disagreed with Calvinism and he didn't like it for various reasons. So our pastor finally said to him, just to get his attention off the subject of the debate, he said, "Well, what if Calvinism is true? What if the point of view I'm taking is true?" He goes, "Are you okay with that? Are you okay with God?" And from what I heard, the guy kind of got wide-eyed and looked at him. That was a question that had taken him aback. And he says, well, I have to think about that. I'm glad he said that, because he realized that, what if God is a way we don't particularly like, or viscerally it disturbs us? And, while we all have our theologies, and hopefully most of it is based upon, thoughtfulness and research, and even though it's never going to be perfect, we have a theology inevitably. But we have to think, well, what if we have a theology that we hold to because it's just more appealing to us? And this brought me to something that was going on last night on a Facebook post, where somebody said something, and I have to admit, I'm not one of these button-down type Christians. I mean, if people who are non-Christians or skeptics, or maybe nominal Christians, or just people who like to say what's on their mind, I'll find humor in it, even if ultimately as a Christian I might not agree with it, because I can understand from a human point of view why they said that. And the subject got onto politics, and there was a comparison between Newt Gingrich and how he handled some divorce, where he supposedly handed divorce papers to a wife while she was in the hospital with cancer, and Bill Clinton and his marital infidelities. And she was obviously upset, because she was more of a Clinton supporter. But even if she wasn't a Clinton supporter, maybe she just said, well, I just think, what Newt Gingrich did was horrible. And I don't think I can understand that. It just seems really, really bad that a woman's in a hospital dying of cancer, and you serve divorce papers. And it seemed like Newt was just a bad guy. And it just really bothered her. Yet Clinton's infidelities or unfaithfulness, she had a lot of rationales for the reason of why he does things. She likes Clinton. She also thinks ultimately, even though the marriage of with Hillary's complex, that she has Hillary's back in the long run, and Bill would never do to Hillary what Newt did to his wife. And that's fine. But I just made the comment about how I understood how she might think Newt was worse than Gingrich, because she thinks a president or a man having extracurricular activities is ultimately no big deal. And I said to her, well, in the Old Testament, if you committed adultery, you would be stoned. And to that she responded back, and this what kind of made me laugh. Well, that's insane. That's insane. And a lot of people, when they read, certain things in the Old Testament, they go on and on and on. And this is one of the reasons, the stumbling blocks, that they don't believe in God, or they think the Old Testament's a crazy book, because viscerally and humanly speaking, it is very, very offensive. I mean, off the top of my head, I can't think of all the difficult sayings in the Bible, but a lot of them are in the Old Testament. You can go to the book of Leviticus. You can read a lot of things about children, teenagers being disobedient, getting stoned. Like I said, adultery, being stoned. A lot of things that are really, really harsh. And it seems like God is just an impatient, wrathful God. Although I think on a closer reading of Scripture, throughout Scripture, Old and New Testament, you'll see God is very patient, loving, and there's a lot of rationale, even on a human level, why God does things. But humanly speaking, and God's ways are not our ways. It just seems like, wow, this is crazy, or use my friend's language, insane. But I would ask her the same question. Are you okay with God if that's the way things are? If God thinks differently about the notion of adultery than you do, what do you have to say about that? I know people in the past have told me when they read, about the God of the Bible, and I say, what if it's true? She says, well, if the God of the Bible is true, I want nothing to do with him. I hate him. Okay. What if there's a judgment? What if he insists you bend the knee? Well, I won't do it. Well, what if there's a hell? What if God holds all the cards? And this is what people really don't think about. Their pride gets caught in because of their notion as a human being of what God should and shouldn't do. Last I checked, if you believe in God, God is God, and he has every right to exercise his Godness, so to speak. You know, God is the creator of all things. And as the scripture says, has not the potter the right over the clay to fashion one vessel to honor and one vessel to dishonor? Who are we to say, God, why have you really made things like this? Things we ultimately really don't understand. We think we do, but we don't. There's so many mysteries of God and the way He's orchestrated different events and the world and many things. And we just, think we can be Monday morning quarterbacks. And if we don't like the Bible and how it reads, we can create our own religion. We don't really have any right to do that when you really think about it. We're just finite creatures. We may be certainly better than squirrels or hamsters, but we're not God. And these are my thoughts that a lot of people, when they have a theology, they have to really look, in case we all know maybe one day we're wrong, and maybe we hold to a view because our sensibilities want things to be a certain way regarding certain attributes people might have regarding their lifestyle or about, God and His doctrinal stances. But all of these things have effect in our lives, and God ultimately has control over them. And God has a worldview that is in many ways much different than ours. And the question is, can we, to quote a famous movie, A Few Good Men, can we handle the truth? Can we handle it? Because ultimately, truth is what wins out. It's like the abortion issue. Somebody once said, well, I don't like the idea that if, abortion were made legal or, made illegal again, we might have back alley abortions and all these other things. And that may or may not be the case. But if a certain thing that is true and right is put out there and it has side effects that we don't particularly like, that doesn't mean we should run things that way. Like if I think somebody should be called out on being a bad person or being a liar or just being a jerk, but I don't call them out because I'm afraid they're going to have a temper tantrum. I don't live my life based upon how other people react or other things that might trickle down because of something. I live according to truth, and that's how God frames things. Follow truth, live for truth. And these are my thoughts. Any comments? Be delighted to hear from them. Until next time, so long.